I'm scared to talk about this movie. I think it might be my white whale, so to speak. Like, I'm not hesitant to talk about Baby Driver or Shaun of the Dead and fully intend to. I'm a completionist, but honestly, this movie just scares me a lot. Of all movies, this is the one I don't feel worthy to talk about. I mean, we all have one, right? Like, we all have a pile of favorite films, and this unquestionably sits at the top of my mind pile the grand majority of the time. And favorites are fickle, evolving conundrums resulting in tumultuous pressures. Who cares about favorites? I'm saying I respect this film too damn much. This is my desert island movie. I could survive with just this as entertainment. It's that packed. And I'm writing this with a 6 a.m. hangover and a bout of insomnia that I haven't been able to shake since I left the hospital during the lowest point of my life. Somehow those things combine to do a bit of hair of the courage or something, because let's do this. Hot Fuzz, here we go. Woo! Is a 2007 film directed by Edgar Wright. I don't even know where you got those balloons, but please don't do that again. The 2007 film directed by Edgar Wright and written by Wright and nerd Thor Simon Pegg, which are words I really like saying because they sound really correct coming out of my mouth. And I want to lean on the writing for a second. There's at least 27 layers in this action-packed onion. Yeah, Roy! Onions. Like, there is so much to talk about here. I'm not really sure where to start with the writing, so I'm just gonna pick a spot and bloviate from there and we'll see where we land. Characters, that's a cool trick. Everything everyone does in this film at the script level reinforces their character to the audience. And yeah, that's like a thing you're supposed to do in writing to make sure that the audience groks what's going on in your film, but like, in this movie, I think it takes it to an uncomfortable level because everything lines up to a startling degree, but they're a lot more nuanced on, well, let's say that I have seen this film more than any other film ever. I'm still finding instances where the words or actions reinforce a nuanced portrait told through rousing caricature. That is a hell of a sentence. Let me say that in 1,000 times more simple way, and I'm going to use protagonist Captain Nicholas Angel as the example. On first or second viewing, he is a broadly painted stereotype that everyone on all sides constantly mocks for his by-the-numbers no-nonsense demeanor. Everyone thinks they know him, like literally everyone in the film but Danny, but after you watch it many more times, a portrait of a slightly lonely dude whose best friend is a plant prior to meeting the literal love of his life in a non-sexual way, who in every situation is actually the most permissive among them, allowing small infractions to pass by while confronting the bigger issues. He's generally 100% polite about it until there are no other police options still on the table. It's a subtle movie. My, what a broadly painted cop cliche he is. Sarcasm. Noises. Or we could use Danny to further illustrate how and why this genre send-up comedy propels itself to the top of the class. Danny appears to be an aloof dingle moppet who was smothered by a father who clearly doesn't understand boundaries or reality and therefore appears underdeveloped, which much of it is still true except for the undeveloped part. In addition to all of those, he is preternaturally kind, thinks about things about 15 moves ahead, ketchup packet. Ta-da. And has a staggering amount of human-to-human empathy, which I think presents as naivete. He also worships cowboys, but when given the chance to be one, a cowboy that is, he follows his friend's lead and resorts to violence only as a means of subduing active enemy combatants. Somehow all done through the lens of action films while commenting on those same films, cause this movie never stops being hilarious.
Sergeant Angel's been taken care of. Yarp. He's not gonna get back up again.
Narp?
You just have a lot to digest over a period of multiple viewings in time. But in the negative column, ergo the nuance column, because we like characters to have flaws, Danny's entire understanding of his own job comes from bad influences of mostly American action cinema. He's flawed.
Point Break or Bad Boys 2.
We sort of caused his main flaw. And I say flaw because in a room full of children, he does ask Nicholas if there's a spot on a man's head that if you shoot it, it will blow up. Which I don't think there is. And the writing in this film makes a direct point to show you that the characters on screen are not who you first probably thought they were, or your second or third viewing, or so on and so on. Depth of this kind rewards multiple viewings because the nuances present themselves in the midst of the staggering bombast on display. I would be hard-pressed to name a movie to me that's more rewatchable. But in this instance, it's as a utility. Edgar Wright! Actually, just if you just excuse me for 1 second. Where were we? Jesus Christ! All of the characters are constructed in this manner, even the villains, and all of them appear at first to be good, then appear at the end to be bad. The more you watch it, the more it's obvious that the villains were always bad and are drawn into a myriad of petty things. They don't have the mental capacity to process even the flimsiest slights against them.
Can I borrow your newspaper?
We're not big fans of the local fish wrapper, are we, Mayor?
They listed her age as 55.
When I'm actually 53. Oh, no.
This movie can make you Charlie Day if you're not keeping good notes about how many ways the film connects back onto itself. It really does have an absolutely ludicrous number of thoughtful and entertaining things going on all the time in every line of dialogue and character action. Eventually you start getting into the D and E plot weeds like the living statue and the graffiti kids, and they end up helping him in the end. He overlooks their crimes and enlists their help because at that point he knows that these people might just kill these kids anyway, so he rides into a town on a horse with a bunch of ordnance to bring about a peaceful end with no loss of life. That's a sentence. The writing is so damn subversive. It manages to provoke the action industry by setting a legitimate bar that not a lot of directors are going to be able to hit while using genre conventions to illustrate criticism over action cinema as a whole. Also while being one of the funniest movies I've ever seen. Movies at the top do like one of those well. That starts with the writing. Pegg and Wright killed it. I think the Hot Fuzz Awards page illustrates my point beautifully. It's anemic. But my theory is that the time it takes to really see all of the love and craftsmanship on display here is later than the award ceremonies for that year themselves ran, which is like the Oscar kill screen to me, man. You did it, Edgar. You reached Oscar screen 256.
Gunfights, car chases, proper action and shit.
There is definitely an undercurrent of if you're having fun making something, then the audience has a greater chance of also having fun when they see it. You gotta have fun to make fun.
But did you know?
This film features two of the greatest cameos of all time. Peter Jackson as Father Christmas and Cate Blanchett as Janine. Yeah, if you didn't know that, you will never be able to unsee it. Here are some other fun stories.
Paddy Considine is like my favourite actor.
Rafe Spall, the actor that plays Andy Cartwright, the other one's Wainwright, during an interview when asked about who his favorite actor was, got way sheepish and responded that it was a little awkward because it was in fact Paddy Considine, the other Andy. So, one, the Andys are now surprisingly immediately an even greater thing, and two, oh, and did I mention that Paddy Considine does one of these entirely in character as Andy?
Never heard of them. Any of them. Don't even know them. I only know about 3 actors. Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, and the guy that played the Elephant Man. They're the only ones I know. I only know him as the Elephant Man.
Olivia Colman tells a story about the first time she met Timothy Dalton when she arrived on set and scene.
Timothy Dalton walked in. He was about 8 foot tall. It was too scary.
Spread this joy from the earth to the moon, my children. Anne Reid, yes, keep your applause going. Yes, like that. Anne Reid, yeah. But like the movie, I could sit here and list facts about the Shotgun Bananas number of things worth your time going on behind the scenes, but this film is merely a deep dive into absurdity that rewards you the more times you take that journey. I somewhat famously, annoyingly, used to tell people that Hot Fuzz is a movie you have to watch 37 times before you can form an opinion on it. Even though past Mikey sounds like a real Alexander Dumas, I also don't think he was entirely wrong. I think a lot of people had to keep track of a lot of scary things behind the scenes on a film like this, so I feel like the script supervisor deserves a special round of applause on her own. Susanna Lenton. Yes, you have done God's work this day. And the army of additional script supervisors as well. Yeah, keep it going for them too. I'm sure that was terrifying, but you all managed to keep the continuity of thousands of things that don't necessarily appear in adjacent scenes. If you're the Swan, for example, you'd only appear in scenes 5, 7, and 35. I just made those numbers up, but it illustrates my point and the sheer amount of heroic work that went on behind the scenes to bring this mammoth story about a piddly village trying to win a contest for a magazine. It has the smallest, biggest stakes of all time, literally at one point. But there's so much effort on display here. Everything is exact and mostly silly in the best possible way. Absolutely heroic effort from Edgar all the way down. Oh, and did I mention that the budget is estimated at only $12 million, which amplifies, I think, literally everything that could be said about this movie. It competes tonally with the big boys for a fraction of the cost, which is as technical of a feat as it is a creative one. You need every department bringing their F-Zero game. Oh, that's the level above A game? It's called F-Zero game because it needed a cool sounding name. This is the film that shows you that you can shoot anything if you have a lot of really smart producers and an absolutely undignified amount of raw talent in your director. If I was in film school right now, literally every poster on my wall would be Hot Fuzz. For scale real quick, the budget of Diary of a Wimpy Kid: The Long Haul was $22 million. That's like 11/20ths of a Wimpy Kid difference if my Wimpy Kid math holds up. Did you check this? You should seek out and devour every behind-the-scenes featurette that you can, as I have only given you a tiny glimpse into the ungodly talented madness that awaits you. But I hope it was a glimpse that will help you appreciate the titanic feats of skill it took to make this movie for this amount of money. That's objectively impressive. And if I may abruptly pull this J-turn into a rose garden belonging to my neighbor. Early on in the special features, Edgar says something very interesting. He says that Hot Fuzz was their attempt to try and take the cinema back from the gangster flick in England. Give movies back to the bobbies, so to speak, from the gangster films. Which I get, but time has an interesting way of treating decisions like this. Their hearts were very much in the right place, and I'll cover how right in section 5, but in essence, the attempt was to make the police the good guys again. Lots of people make police movies.
Jerry Bruckheimer meets Miss Marple. Wallace and Gromit and the Straw Dogs.
Rural weapon, if you will.
Not a lot of people make police movies about being, a flourishing and contributing member to both society and to the police force at large. Angel doesn't just say he's a good cop, he is a good cop. In fact, he has a scene where he does the most brilliant thing ever. He uses a pen as a weapon in an intelligent fashion. When future murder victim Martin Blower and his questionably talented ingenue Eve Draper are pulled over by Nick and Danny to gain control of a situation in a town where the police's authority is not respected.
That was brilliant.
Nicholas writes down everything that Martin says, and it drives him nuts. It forces Blower to apologize for his infraction in such a way that merely dealing with authority again would be a pain, and he's going to avoid it at all costs, which means he's not going to speed anymore. Albeit, the town does immediately murder him, more for the terrible Shakespeare than breaking the law, which says more about the town than anything else, but that's all beside the point. We'll get into Wright's decision to shoot the murders as if they're a horror movie in the next section, and quick reminder, the only deaths in this police movie are wholly the bad guys doing the bad things, which is a point that deserves discussion in a moment.
You murdered him for that? Well, he murdered Bill Shakespeare? What?
Like, the good guys never kill anyone, but it's an extra special bar to me to not take the easy way out and simply make a cop movie where all the bad guys are presumed guilty and just get shot a bunch and just do the whole Dirty Harry thing, even under extreme duress. So here's a really interesting trope we've seen a million times in a million cop things with a fundamental twist. People don't like Nicholas because he's a good cop. But that's not a flaw. For how everyone treats him like a slack-jawed goody two-feet, he reacts always with patience, even after the NWA, Neighborhood Watch Association, God I love this movie, but even after the mammoth reveal that this movie just one-upped Scream's killer count by a good 9 or so, all of which try to kill Nicholas, and he manages to look like a stone-cold badass the entire time. And I don't want to extrapolate too much here, that's what the last section of this video is for, but the joke is that the police look like ultra-badass action movie rock stars by following due process of the law and being a calm, contributing member in the community. A thing with an ultimately super positive message about taking the cool points back from the gangsters breaking the laws on screen to be ousted by the police being glorified for putting up with the mundanity of their job. Edgar made being a cop, like a real cop, cool. Hey, what was that thing that He-Man used to say all the time?
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to get through this thing called life.
There is an absolutely mammoth amount of skill on display here, and I mean that voluminously. Like, there is so much skill on display in this film collectively. Like, how often is Martin Freeman being in a film not a thing people talk about? But in this, he's not even top 100. Sorry, Watson. Ignore that this is a comedy for one moment and think about the fact that this movie has to send up 3 genres at once. Horror, action, mystery, while being a 4th genre, comedy. Oh, and you need to balance all of those wildly disparate elements from scene to scene so perfectly that the wild swings between film genre don't even register to an audience. Oh, and those genre switches also act as commentary on the state of one of those particular genres being sent up. Action. An action movie where the villain's deplorable actions are treated as, deplorable and not gently nuzzled in clean breezes and smooth jazz. A film where people are so obsessed with their best village award that they're willing to blast that village apart. They're abusive to their own village. This is a totally dumb thing, but when they all get guns in the big climax, they cock off screen like 100,000 times, and it is hilarious. Or what I consider the ultimate, poking fun at the absurdity of Point Break having a scene where 2 dudes on opposite sides of the law love each other so much that instead of killing their partner, one man has to shoot his gun into the air while yelling, "Ah!"
Have you ever fired your gun up in the air and gone, ah? No, I have not ever fired my gun up in the air and gone, ah.
And then creates a circumstance where that actually makes sense as a human action, firing your gun into the air while yelling, "Ah!" It Point Break, and I do not say those words lightly. To illustrate in a slightly different way, I went through the Rotten Tomatoes archive to find the first negative review of Hot Fuzz that I could. I'm not going to list their name because I'm about to put them on blast in a hilarious way. There's a passage in their review that is so good it kind of does the work for me in explaining how much is going on in this film. Imagine, let's say, mathematically the opposite of everything I'm about to tell you. Making parodies of Bad Boys 2 and Point Break action films is no big deal and seems hardly worth the effort since those films are mostly self-parodies. Peg, to his credit as an actor, gets the most out of the tongue-in-cheek comedy as he can by exhibiting pitch-perfect timing for his antics and showing a great screen presence, but his screenplay is overlong, filled with way too many unfunny geek gags, and is pointless. Damn, Daniel, that's harsh. That is a powerful condemnation to say a film is pointless, especially when the idea of movies themselves is, pointless. I mean, to miss the forest with a tree in your mouth. I think this film was an achievement. With all of the cards on the table, budget, time, and scale, I'm not sure it has a peer in that regard. Can you name one that does this many things this well? It's like the film equivalent of a multi-tool, which segues beautifully into why I think this movie means more now than it did then. Movies can evolve in meaning. Many times a film will take on meaning later that it never intended to in the first place. and I super don't want to talk about this, but it's impossible to avoid. I've explored a lot of meanings of films on this show and generally try not to draw a distinction between intended meaning and unintended meaning, though I have labeled it sometimes so the audience can tell when I'm extrapolating versus the filmmaker's true intended meaning. I just don't want to imply that one is worth more than the other. What value does art have if not collectively to ourselves? I bring that up so explicitly because I think that Hot Fuzz, when it came out in 2007, really was just Edgar Wright wanting to make a proper copper film to get over some of the gangster stuff all over the screens. There is a ton of intended meaning told by brilliant performances built with the structure of a true artisan and edited with sound design that I can only assume was magic. But for the end, I want to talk about unintended meaning. It's been 10 years. This year, in fact, since Hot Fuzz came out. I want to say this with delicacy, because this is obviously a loaded issue, but a film where police officers struggle against what they've been taught by media in an effort to do actual police work, settle their disputes without killing anyone, and generally let the small stuff go in an effort to do the most good in a world while hurting the least number of people. And I could not shake that feeling. A film that openly acknowledges how media warps our understanding of the people sworn to protect us, pushing back against our media for glorifying violence in the police space.
Second, we'll see. Friend said she came down to drink mojitos and catch some sun.
Well, it looks like something caught her.
And certainly I don't believe that all of that was unintended either, especially the stuff about how the media manipulates, but I do want to be a little careful and not put too many words in their mouths. Here, I'm going to describe this movie, but it's going to sound like I'm describing reality. When entrusted public servants provably murder unarmed people on the reg, it might imply a deeper systematic issue, especially when the people perpetuating the crimes are routinely protected by the people that claim to be committing these actions for everyone's benefit, the greater good, than justifying why the people they killed were guilty on paper for some imagined or manufactured reason. Tell me that doesn't get a little close to home. Again, I really don't want to politicize this movie in this way, but the world is simply not the place it was 10 years ago, and I think an overtly silly yet brilliant piece of art has taken on a grander meaning than it had when it came out originally. I think this is philosophical, not political. I can't think of a more moderate position to be at than we trust people in free societies to take on leadership and authoritative roles that need the servants in those positions to be beyond reproach. And we have a lot of data that fallible, sad jellyfish known as human beings are super fallible and need checks and balances in place to ensure that they stay beyond reproach systematically. Hot Fuzz is simply setting up a blueprint that I think we could honestly use, silly or not, and it's one I really think we should be paying more attention to. Like, what other media can you name that is like this? What film glorifies paperwork and due diligence of evidence before passing judgment? Being a police officer is supposed to be hard because those among us that are brave and selfless enough to take on this responsibility signed a social contract with everyone in that society. It's supposed to be hard and boring because that's what peace looks like. And every once in a while, a silly movie fading a bit from memory teaches us the right thing at the right time, way after the fact. Here is the perfect example of how this movie took on more meaning over time.
Make Sanford great again.
Did that one give you goosebumps? 2007. It's the same fantastic movie. It just means more now than it did then. And that's why I will always love Hot Fuzz, even if I barely scratched the top of it. Alex Podgorski, he invented Pogs, I believe. Sam Bacon is bringing home the bacon Tuesdays this fall on ABC or TNT, I don't know. Austin, that's probably the city, not the person. Tracy Jones, daughter of Bridget Jones' diary. Time Jumper 319, that is my favorite Mortal Kombat character. Adam, Billy, Charles, Dan, Fred, take that to first name Smith. Okay, the joke's out of hand now. Ethereal, blah. That actually was what my name tag said when I worked at a Hot Topic. Benedict the Mad, actually brothers with Benedict the Chad. Very odd naming structure in that family. Tim Arnold, missed Tom Arnold by an O. Jason Hickerty, the name in Ford's I trust. John McGarity, the other name in Fords, I trust. Yesenia Cisneros. She's not allowed to ride the bus between 2 and 4 p.m., but no one's really sure why. Just that she's not allowed to ride during those hours. Very odd. Waffleopagus, when you need to fill in the name blank and your kid keeps shoving Sesame Street toys in your face. Damn, Daniel, that's 2 in one episode. Mike Laidlaw, criminal attorney at law, also under investigation. Aaron DeBerry, someone who should go into singing right now, because you have the name for it. Brady Altop, brother of Xenia Onatop. What was her name? Xenia Onatop, is that? Can we get a GoldenEye check on aisle 3? Girish Menon. By Menon, for Menon. I don't know, like a butt or something. Terry Mesnard Wineries. They're grape. Manuel Magana, my brother in arms, in the Darkwing Duck dark web.
Walrus.
You've reached Kevin Hochter, Dragon Hunter at Law. Please leave your name at the beep. Nick Grugan from Grugan's Donuts. You'll become a serial crueler in no time. Just a little something I came up with.
Map.
And that will do it for us. Thank you for watching another episode of Movies with Mikey. Please like and subscribe and follow me on Twitter and do all that stuff. Do all of the things that all of the kids want you to do. I don't know how to do this, but my energy keeps increasing. Please tell everyone about this video because I worked really hard on it. Okay, bye.